right, so thanks for coming out today. This is the Educational Training Services Recovery 101 utilizing the Safe Extract system.
My name is Brian Sillis. I'm here with ETS Consulting. A couple friends of mine, Tom and Scott, who have been instructing off-road recovery for quite a while. And I found myself in a precarious situation with my son a couple years ago when we were stuck on a high plateau here in New Mexico and we got snowed in and we couldn't get off the mountain. But what it taught me was that I need to have the confidence to be able to go well off the beaten path into remote areas in the pursuit of big game, and having the right equipment and the right training is essential to that task. What I did is I got together with Tom Rader. I said, listen, Tom, I need to figure out how to outfit my new truck to make sure I have the confidence to go deep into the backcountry, and even if I'm by myself, can have a fair chance of recovery and survival.
So hi, my name is Scott Parker. I'm with Educational Training Services. I am a accredited instructor with the International Four-Wheel Drive Trainers Association. I have been off-roading my whole life, and I've been instructing probably for the last 5 or 6 years. Really what we like to do is in the beginning of the class we kind of just go over the equipment that we have. You have gotten the SX2000, which is a majority of the stuff that's on this tarp right here. Later in the class we'll pull your kit out. We'll go through each item to identify so you know that you have that piece in your bag, but basically this is what's in there. There might just be a little bit more with what's right here. This over here is just some of the extra gear that we take out that we recommend, especially for somewhere out here in the West. What I'll do is I'll start on this side over here and we will walk through what the items are. Now this is all from Safe Extract. It's a company here, right here in the USA. It's all made in the United States. And one of the things that we really like about this is that it's all pool tested. And what that means is that every piece of gear on here has gone through an independent testing and is rated. We'll start off on this side and move to this. This right here, these are what we call screw pin bow shackles. Pretty easy to identify. If you see, it's got a bow and it's got a screw pin. So these are green pins. What's nice about these is they all have a rating on them. And this is something that we will utilize whether it's on the vehicle here or using when we go around a tree or a rock. We'll utilize these to bring some of the gear together. But the important thing to also note about some of this gear is that there's a safety rating that's built into it. And what that means is it's either a 5-to-1, 4-to-1, or a 3-to-1. When you go to buy recovery gear, you want to make sure it's going to be rated for your vehicle. Now, what the industry has basically moved towards is what we call soft shackles. These soft shackles come in all different shapes and sizes. So you'll see on these that it has green on this end and on this end. And whatever you're connected to, as long as it's green to green, you're set up properly. These will both accomplish the same goal. But this weighs considerably less. And so when we are using these things and when we are building out our vehicles, we often try to conserve weight as much as possible. People will say, well, I'm just going to buy a ton of these and not worry about these. I wouldn't do that. I would carry a set of both. And the reason being is there's times where you're going to want a hard shackle to connect to something else which may have some sharper edges on it, because as you can tell, since this is plasma, if you have a sharp edge on it, it'll cut through it. Whereas if I have a sharp edge on this, it's metal, it's not going to do anything. So what happens when you're pulling or using in a dynamic fashion, you'll build up tension in this, and this can get twisted down. And it can get kind of stuck. So having a screwdriver just gives you the leverage that you need so that you can unhook it, get that tension off, and then you can just use your fingers to unscrew it and pull it out. So the next piece of gear that I carried, now this doesn't come with the Safe Extract kit, but this is a cluster that you will often find that tow truck drivers will carry. A lot of newer vehicles out there they're not frame on body, they're unibody. And even some of the frames, you'll notice that in the frame you'll see holes. And if there's not a good recovery point on the vehicle, you can either go to the frame, if it has one, or you'll find that there's these little holes up underneath there, and that's what this stuff is designed for. So we also carry carabiners. People will say, this is for rock climbing. Well, it's also going to be used in our training today with our high lift jack. So there's lots of different carabiners on the market. These are actually steel carabiners. We don't want to use aluminum because they will bend. The steel can bend as well, but it's got a much higher strength rating. There's a marking on this side, and this is 63 kilonewtons. The 63 kilonewtons in this direction is a very high weight rating. So we'll be able to use this in the recovery when we show how to set up. If your vehicle doesn't have a winch, we can show you how to use this as your winch, and utilizing these pieces in that setup, this is more than strong enough to accomplish the goal that we need to. So this next set is a tree saver. It's a small strap. Typically what you'll find is this is something that you'll use to put around a very large rock, big tree. Can be used in a bunch of different configurations, and we'll kind of go over that as we're doing recoveries today. But the nice thing about this is that, again, everything that we have is labeled. If you'll notice on here, it's going to say working load limit. Depending on how we utilize this, if it's in a straight line, or if what we use it in is what we call a choker, like this, or we use it in a basket, it's going to have a different working load limit. And it'll tell you right here on this label. So you'll see we have the vertical, whether it's vertical or horizontal. We'll have the choker where it's looped back on itself, or we'll have the basket, and the basket is just meaning it's like a U. And each one of those configurations will have a different weight rating, the strongest being the basket. This is a winch line extension. One of the items that's missing from this is the actual winch line, and that is what we're actually going to put on your vehicle today. Your actual winch line is in your kit, and you'll see that the reason we include this with the kit is so that you have additional winch line. If I only put 60 feet on there, then I'm not going to have enough line some of the time. So what we do is we carry an extra set that can be hooked in using either hard shackles or the soft shackles to give us that additional footage that we need. All right, so the next piece that we have here, now this one is not in your kit. This is something else that you can get though, but this is a 1/2 inch, 10-foot continuous loop. The nice thing about this is that this one is a 1/2 inch, 10 feet, but as you can see, it's a continuous loop. So what's nice about this? We can use this for all different things. Just like we use the tree saver, we can use it in a basket configuration, we can use it in a straight line. We can also use it in the choker fashion. But let's say that we have our winch line out and we just need an extra 10 feet. Well, guess what? I can use this with my winch line instead of having to use the extra winch line extension. And we also use the system what we call closed loop. So we want a closed system. We don't want things where the winch line or the vehicle is held with just a hook. If we can get away with it without having to do that, perfect. So this is used for momentum extraction. A lot of people say this is a kinetic rope or a dynamic rope, which it is. What's nice about this is that it's basically a big bungee cord. So the idea is that you would hook this to one vehicle, hook this to another vehicle, and following the correct procedure, you use your momentum and the weight of the vehicle to pull him out. And so it'll stretch and then pull the vehicle out of the mud, the sand, snow, whatever it is that you're stuck in. We always get people to ask, what is this thing? So this is called the X-Lock. We'll be able to use this in a bunch of different configurations today. We can use this to rappel a vehicle down a hill. We can use it to shorten line. Just like the X-Lock, this is our aluminum dowel. And you'll notice that it's not straight all the way across. It has a little curvature to it. And the reason being is that we can also use this as a line lock to shorten line when we're doing our recoveries today. You never end up being in the most optimal position when it comes to vehicle recoveries. You're either too close or you're too far away. Maybe you can move your vehicles, maybe you can't. So utilizing these two pieces throughout today, you'll be able to see how we can shorten line when we have extra extensions or if we have the piece that's on our vehicle. So this is our pulley block. You'll also hear it referred to as a snatch block. So the line, when we're using it, will just lay in there, and then we have it like this. The nice thing is this sets you up so you can't fail. So when we have this configured properly, we can't pull on it sideways. So if I could slide this in, we never want to pull in this direction or this direction. We always want to have it in this direction or this direction. And the reason being is it's not going to pull on the sides of these. Where you get your maximum strength is where it's pulled like this, whatever angle it is, as long as this is in here properly, in that configuration, whatever it is, then you're pulling in this direction. And why do I say that? Well, if I were to take this and try to put it in here, it won't fit. It can only go one way. This, using a screw pin bow shackle, is the correct setup. I can't put this on wrong, and that's why we like this system. We never want to use a soft shackle on anything sharp. So all these edges are nice and radius, they're curved, okay? So once I have my soft shackle, I can slide it through here. And going back to what we talked about earlier, if you're not familiar with it, once you get the head through, I can look at the label on here and it tells me proper rigging. So green to green. So as long as I have my connection set up like this, whether it's whatever direction you want, that is the proper setup for it. And I don't have to worry about there being any issues of cutting into this soft shackle itself. These are our leashes. Now, these can be used in a bunch of different configurations. But again, everything we have has a label. This is a 3/8 diameter, 12 foot, and what you'll notice is that there's two different colors. Same exact thing, they're just two different colors. One will have a small loop, and one will have a big loop. So the MTS, maximum tensile strength, is 17,500 on these. So I'm going to hand this over to you, Ryan, and you can look at that. So when we were talking about needing additional length on our line, we can utilize that depending on how much the vehicle weighs, how stuck it is, and so forth. But these give us lots of different options when it comes to, okay, I need a little bit extra length, so instead of pulling out another 60 feet where we would have to use this, let's say that we needed another 30 feet, but this is 60 feet long. Well, I can do this, then I'll have to use one of these line locks over here, or I can use 3 of those, or 2 of those, depending on what I need, instead of having to pull out something like this. All right, so as we move over to the second set of gear over here, some of this stuff is recovery gear, some of it's not, but I still include it in my kit, and the reason will be, we'll talk about the reasons that I do that as we go through. So on this side over here, definitely a piece of recovery gear. This is a high lift jack. So this jack is a 60-inch. So depending on the type of vehicle that you have will dictate to what size that you need. However, this is probably one of the most underutilized and most feared pieces of equipment that's out there. If you go and you drive around Albuquerque or wherever you are, you'll find that these are on every Jeep. And 99% of the time, they're rusted to the vehicle. People go out, they buy them, and they don't get properly trained on how to use them. They hear that they're really scary and dangerous. Then they just sit on their vehicle as extra weight, and they're just never used. We're going to dispel all those myths today as we use this, and we'll talk about the differences in sizes and why it makes a difference based on the height of your vehicle, how much it weighs, and so forth. This is just a stabilizing base that'll go on the base of the high lift jack. So we're out here in the sand. Depending on how soft it is, I can utilize this. I'll put the foot in here, and what that will do is just give it a more stable base to be used. There are instances where we do not want to use this, and as we go throughout today, I'll highlight those points when we get to them, but we want the jack to be unstable for different techniques that we use. Line dampener. So, also a big controversial item. You have synthetic on your vehicle. So what we find is that if you're utilizing something where wire rope is used, so a lot of the old winches, or even a lot of the new stuff out there, will have wire cable on it. Well, the idea is that you put this on, and on the inside is a big pocket, so you can fill this with sand, rocks, something heavy. You lay this over your line so that should that line snap, this is going to dampen it and hopefully bring it to the ground, as opposed to coming back and hitting you or your vehicle or going through the windshield. There's plenty of video out there on YouTube where you can see where people either not winching properly or utilizing a winch line that is not rated for how stuck the vehicle is and outside the weight rating, and it just snaps. Well, wire rope has all these different cables, and they're coiled, okay? And so as it stretches, there is a little bit of stretch in the metal cable. It gets under a very high tension, and should it break, people think it just comes straight back. Well, no, what happens is all those pieces that are braided together, they start to untwist from the line, and it gets bigger and bigger. Think of it like a cone, right? Like an ice cream cone, but coming back at you. So that's why when we do our winching today, we're going to set up a cone shape area that, hey, we're not going to be inside this. This is our safety area. One of the first items that I really kind of recommend to people to get is to get better traction out on the trail. You need to take some air out of your tires, okay? Well, if I take air out, that means I probably have to put air back in. So carrying, whether it's a Viair or any of the other brands out there, having a way to air back up. Tires don't like to be aired down on pavement because it causes friction, right? Increases your traction. Well, as you drive down the asphalt or the concrete, what's going to happen is heat's going to build up, and that can cause damage to the tires. The ply, the different layers can start to come unglued, and then you can have a tire failure. So that's why we always say, once you get back to the road, air your tires back up to whatever is recommended for your vehicle. The other thing that I always carry, I also have jumper cables, but having something like this where if I need to go down a hill to jump start a vehicle that I don't want to take my vehicle down, this is a NOCO. I can just plug this in, take it down there, and I can jump start a vehicle. Because oftentimes people have been stuck out there for a couple of days. By the time you get out there, the battery might be dead. Having something like this can be quite beneficial. The other thing that you might want to consider is this is just an ARB kit that I've taken out of their kit and put in here, but this is a tire repair kit, and this is something that we can kind of go over. We have another class that we put on where what we do is we actually drill holes in tires, and we show you how to fix a flat out on the trail.
I'm surprised how many people have never fixed a flat when their air's still in the tire on the trail.
All right, so one of the most problematic things that you'll find out on the trail is that guys will be out rock crawling, off-roading, overlanding, whatever it is, and you will bust a valve stem. The rest of the tire is fine, but your valve stem got damaged in some way and now the air is leaking out. So these guys at Colby Valve were kind enough to send me these. These are great emergency tools. So what you do is if you can pull it out, or cut it and push it in, this will slide into the hole, and as you twist this down, this rubberized piece will push in, and you will have a brand new valve stem for this. So if I was to keep pushing this down and you look in there, there is a regular Schrader valve right inside there. So now I can air my tire back up and get back on the trail.
So you use this, you can press this right in to the valve stem.
Yep.
This direction.
Yep, it just slides in just like that. You twist this down.
And that bushing spreads out.
It spreads right out, and now you have a good seal, and guess what? It's good to go.
Wow.
They make a bunch of different versions of this, different lengths as well, so depending on the type of rim that you have, if you need a longer stem.
Yeah, no, this is, I always carry a tire repair kit, but I've not thought about this yet.
So one of the other important factors is you'll notice on all my tires is you'll have these covers on your valve stem. I often see people out on the trail where they're running with no cover on it. The problem is this: if you're out on the trail and you're going through mud, snow, sand, and so forth, stuff can get packed in there, so when you need to air your tire up, you can't get it out.
Right.
So just something as simple as using just a cap can keep the snow and mud and all the grime out of that. Makes it easier to air your tires back up or air them down. All right, so the next piece that we're going to have on here, people often say is, why do you carry wheel chocks with you? Well, I like to use these when I'm in a recovery situation. I can chock my wheels, especially if I'm using my vehicle and the winch. I can put these under the tires, front or back, or if I'm using my high lift jack, I can use these under the tires so the vehicle won't move. And they're a little heavy, but these nice rubber pieces like this are a good tool to have with you. Again, not part of recovery kit, but always carrying a first aid kit with you. I tend to be one of those guys that if something's going to happen, it always happens in front of me, and I usually have to be the one that takes care of it. So having a good first aid kit, especially something for massive bleeds, tourniquets, stuff that you would utilize just like you would out in the woods for hunting or out on the battlefield, having stuff like that is really good to have with it. So we live out here in the desert. We don't have a lot of stuff that we can use as anchor points. Now I could dig a big hole, I could put my tire in it, I can put my high lift jack, I can connect it through the tire, and I can utilize. That takes a lot of time. Well, one of the things that we carry is this device, and it utilizes this piece down here, and this is our sand anchor. Okay, this is called a pull pal, and basically what you'll do is you'll see that it has a hole right here at the top, and we'll connect either we will connect a hard shackle to this, and then either a soft shackle or whatever else that we're utilizing, and we can anchor this into the ground. As we pull it, I'm going to set this down. As we pull it this direction, it will drive this into the ground, and now we have an anchor point to pull our vehicle out of whatever it is. We'll work around real quick to this. Always carry a fire extinguisher with you. You just never know. Oftentimes though, you'll see that people will buy a fire extinguisher, they'll throw it in their vehicle, and then like 2 or 3 years later, it's not on green anymore. Where is it? It's on the red. So make sure it has the pin in it. I've got this little piece of blue tape so I know that, hey, it's still on there. That means it's good. The pin didn't pop out. And I also check it every so often to make sure it's still in the green. And carry it with you, especially when you're on a recovery. I like to just keep it outside the vehicle somewhere. So 2 different sets of boards. I'm going to pull one of each of these. So these are the 2 brands that we use. This one is the Action Track on this side. It has the silver pieces of nuts and bolts. And then on this side is the Max Trax Extreme. Now these are a little costly, but I will say when compared to paying a tow truck to come out somewhere out in deep woods, even if you don't have a winch, these things can be a lifesaver. Now you'll notice that they're pretty similar. The designs are pretty darn close. But the nice thing about this one is that if you look on the back, you can replace the teeth. So the biggest problem with recovery boards is people not knowing how to use them. The idea is that you want very slow wheel spin so that the grip of your tires, so you have mud range on your vehicle. The idea is that it will grip into this, pull the board underneath your tire. Now you have traction. Now you have something that your tire can grip onto to get you moving. I can put this, let's say that there's a gap in the trail that we have to make it over, depending on the size of your tire, type of vehicle, and so forth. Having something like this that I can put 2 of them together, and now I have a bridge that I can drive across. These are a little bit more flexible. You'd have to put 3 or 4 of these together. But sometimes you need that flex depending on the type of obstacle that you're in. And then of course the last item right there is the shovel. If you've ever gotten stuck in the snow or the sand, that can be your best friend right there. Just digging out the hole so that even if you're having to winch yourself, we want to make winching as easy as possible on the vehicle and on the winch, right? So if we have an obstacle or something that's stuck in front of the tires and we can dig it out, having something like that comes in handy. And then the last item that you'll see down by your feet down there is a can of WD-40. So whenever we use our high lift jack, we go ahead and spray the high lift to make sure that it's in good working order. And you should probably do that depending on how often you use your high lift, so it doesn't become that extra weight like we were talking about earlier. Right. Use that, and that will allow you to keep that in good working order. When you look at all this gear, people often say, that's a lot of stuff, that's expensive. It's going to give you the ability to know that when you're out and about and you're out there a little bit further than others are, whether it's hunting, off-roading, camping, whatever it is, you know you have that confidence that this kit used with the proper training is going to be able to get you out of most situations, if not all of them.